What's the difference between this shot and this? Compositing. I'm no compositing expert, but I've been getting into Fusion lately, and oh my god, do I wish more people knew this software. But comp requires some setup. You gotta render a specific way, set it up in Fusion a specific way. The process is called Back to Beauty. It's all really complicated, but I'll break it down, take it step by step. So let's see the shot we'll be working on.
Just to arrive. The next graduate.
Okay, you'll see here in Fusion that I've rendered separate view layers. You definitely don't need to do that to go back to beauty, but I want to show you, the full gamut of the workflow. But let's just start with my pilot RGBA layer. I'll rename this with F2 and write pilot, and then I'll press 1 to view it in the first viewport. Alright, so it's looking white. The reason for that is this is a multi-layer EXR. I'll go over that in a bit, how to render out a Blender to get it into here properly, but you probably already know it. Thing is, it's just selecting the top layer, and that is ambient occlusion in this case because it starts with A. It's that simple. So over here on the right, we can select which layer we want, and it's automatically selected the AO, but let's go down to the bottom to RGBA, and that is the actual image. Now, I need to set up my viewport LUT because I rendered in linear color. Don't worry, I'll go over that too. But to view it properly here, gotta turn on the viewport LUT, OCIO color space, and edit it. Open the Blender OCIO, which you'll find in your Blender install folder. Just open that file. Set the source space to what you rendered in. Again, I'll go over that. And the output space to what you used to view it in Blender. So whatever your color management at the bottom of the render settings was. And in my case, I used AGX. And the look I had set to high contrast. So once that is set up, this should look exactly like it did in Blender. And it does for mine. Now, the back to beauty process is the process of splitting out all of these layers and recombining them to get to this image, to get exactly the same image. So why would you do it? Well, you get a lot of control. But before I can show that, I gotta show you how to recombine them. So first off, we could copy, Control-C, Control-V, paste it, just delete that, and we could set this next one to the next layer, then we could copy and paste and select the next layer again, and we could just do that for all of them. Luckily for us, there's a script for it. And that script you can find in Workspace, Scripts, Reactor, Open Reactor. You gotta install Reactor first. Reactor is Fusion's plugin library. And it's kind of like the add-ons page in Blender. What you want is search Split and this one. Haas Split EXR Ultra. That's the one you want. Click Install, restart Fusion, you got that installed, and then you can right-click on a multi-layer EXR like this one, go to Script, Haas EXR Splitter Ultra. That opens this window, and you can accept the defaults, run and close, and it'll split all of those out into individual nodes. So how do we recombine them? There is a recipe, and I've made a cheat sheet for you. You can download that for free, my Gumroad. I'll show you how to do it too. Let's put this aside for now. Ambient occlusion as well, because that's not actually part of the image. It's just, it's a helpful layer. What else don't we need? We don't need the RGBA because that's the same as the pilot. I'll actually delete that. That's just exactly what we're seeing here. I don't need this because it's a light group. I'll show you how to deal with light groups too. But all of these are what you want. If you ever wonder what passes actually go into the beauty layer, just look in Blender on this page in the View Layer tab. Everything that's under passes and under light, this is what goes into the beauty layer. Except for ambient occlusion and shadow catcher, those don't go into it. And I haven't enabled volume either because I don't have any volumes in my scene, but like mist and stuff, that would be that. Back to Fusion. What we want is, we want to select all the pre-components that belong to one aspect of the image, in this case diffuse. These are diffuse color, diffuse direct, and diffuse indirect. And here's the recipe. It's the same for everything going forward, so pay attention. Let's control space to search, and search BOL, channel booleans. That's the same as the mix node in Blender. So what we want is, we want to mix, we want to set the operation to add, we want to add the direct with the indirect. The order doesn't matter. And then let's just rename that F2, call it add. That's for your benefit. And then BOL, do another one, set this to multiply, rename it, and the color goes into that. So we add direct and indirect, and then multiply color. And if we preview that in the viewport, this is what we get, the finished diffuse component. And we just do that with everything. We do that with the 3 glossiness, we do that with the 3 transmission in this case. Because it's such a common operation, I've made a single node that contains these two. I call it channel merge. Channel merge actually works with the order that they come in from Blender. So they come in with color, then direct, then indirect, and if you just put them in that order, it's going to do all the operations in the right order. So previewing that, this is the gloss component. So I'll give you that node too. You can go and download it, but don't do it just yet because there are more custom nodes that I want you to have. So let's just go through them all first. Okay, so color, direct, and indirect. And now that I have all of these, so these are the same as this, let's add all of these together. So do another BOL, set it to add, and we want to add these two together. And then I'll just copy, paste that, and plug that into the new node, and this one as well. If I preview this, this should look exactly like the finished render, which is called pilot in this case. Except for one thing. Let's preview that in the right-hand viewport. And actually, I need to set up the LUT here too. Let me just do that super quick. If I preview my composite in the right viewport, let's press 2 on that, and then press 2 on this. Just toggling between them, you can see there's no difference, except, of course, for the alpha background. That is important to bring along, so let's do that too. Let's, at the very end, do a BOL, channel booleans, get this one in there, and let's do, here we just want to copy, but let's look at 2 red, 2 green, 2 blue, and 2 alpha. What do we want? We want the red, green, and blue channel from the foreground. One of these inputs is the foreground, one is the background. And then we want the alpha from the other one. So we're taking RGB from this one, alpha from this one. So let's just switch it to alpha background. And I think that's going to be the opposite of correct. So let's preview that. And yes, it is. Viewing it in the first viewport, this is incorrect. So let's press Control T to switch those inputs. And now it's finished. Now they look exactly the same. So I'm previewing this node in the right and this node in the left, and they are identical. Now we have full control over all of these components. And this is one of the main benefits of this kind of workflow is, let's say, for example, I have my glossiness here. This is my glossiness. Let's say I put a CC color corrector in there, and watch what happens to this image as I change the gain. I can increase and decrease the reflectiveness. How cool is that? So this is great for blending with live action footage. That's what this mainly is used for. But it's also fantastic for just fine-tuning the look of your image without having to go into shader nodes and do a bunch of wizardry there, which will probably not look great anyway. This video doesn't have an ad, so. You can read my Substack if you want. It's got like fun links and stuff. The ambient occlusion and the sun. So the sun, that is a light group, and I'll definitely make a video dedicated to light groups in the future. But you can just look up. There are tutorials out there how to make light groups. What it basically is I just put one light into it, and now that light has its own layer. So I can basically adjust a light. And in this case, I just have the one light, I have the sun. But a lot of people don't know this. You can combine this back to beauty workflow with light groups. It is a widespread lie that those are mutually exclusive. You can only do one of them. But it's pretty easy, actually. What you need to do is you need to do a BOL, and you need to add the light. That's what all of this is, right? All light is added. So we need to add the sun, right? But now the sun is double up because the sun is already in the image. The sun is here. And this is the reason people don't think it works, but it does. All you need to do is subtract it first. So BOL, first subtract the sun, and then add it. And now, if I bypass these, but with Control P, you can see it's doing nothing because it's first subtracting, then adding, meaning nothing. But in the add step, in this second node, we can put something in between, like for example, a CC color corrector. Holding Shift to insert it into the chain, and say maybe I want my sunlight to be warmer. Maybe a note comes from the creative director, right? We want warmer sun. Well, now I can scooch it over to the warmer side, and that light warms up. So that's before and after, before and after. All without having to render again. And that's key because this render takes on my computer 2 days to render. So I want control in Composite. Okay, what does AO do? Ambient occlusion is, as I said, not a part of the beauty render. This image does not have ambient occlusion in it, but it is very useful for artistic purposes. And you add it with again, channel booleans set to multiply. And in fact, you're gonna have to do that after the alpha. So in fact, I'll pull the alpha out here and just reconnect everything. So the alpha is over here. We're doing the sun. I should maybe use frames, but I think it's fine. And then boolean in the ambient occlusion. So this is the sun, this is the ambient occlusion, and here is the alpha channel, the transparency. So let's preview that final node, and it's a lot darker. That's what AO does, at least if it's not adjusted. So CC, color corrector, and preview that, and let's just change the gamma of it, or maybe the gain, let's see. Yeah, I think the gain. If I just clamp that, bring that up so that it doesn't really affect a lot, and then it'll only add some blackness to the crevices. You can probably tell here, let's see. Yeah, that's it. So it's really like bringing dimension out here. In this case, it's both brightening and darkening because of my gain, which is going above 1. That's just a little bit of a cheat to not darken everything up. One thing that you might think now is, no, it's not easier to do this in Comp. It's much easier to do it in Blender because you can do things on individual objects. Say, if I want the jacket to be green instead, then that's super tough to do here. No, it isn't, because I rendered a Cryptomatte. That is this pass. So Cryptomatte can be rendered out of Blender, and it is a way to select things. And until just the other week, you had to install a plugin to read it, but now it's built into Fusion. Just add a Cryptomatte node. This is the one I've installed previously, but this is the new and official one, and it's great. Let's preview this in the first viewport, and it looks strange. It's just a bunch of colors. It has multiple layers. It's rendered in a special way. I'll go through that. And when I go into the Cryptomatte here, I can first select a layer, and I have 3 different ones here that I rendered. I rendered Crypto Asset, Material, and Object. Different things you can select by. Let's just select Asset for now. And then using the eyedropper, I'll click on the visor, preview that node, and select View Mode Matte. And look at that. It's now selected my whole dude. But let's not go for assets. Let's go for materials instead, because my example was the jacket, wasn't it? And let's just go into the pick button to list all the materials I had in my scene. Let's just click the jacket and OK, and that selects the jacket. Let's say output to alpha, which gives it an alpha channel, making it more usable to use as a mask. Let's just bring that over to the left-hand side of the graph here, because the correct way to change the color of the jacket would not be to do it at the very end. That would be tinting like the lighting information and everything. No, the correct place to do it is diffuse color, this pass, which is the pass that tells the whole composition what is the actual color of the object. So if I insert a CC color corrector after the diffuse color, and I use this Cryptomatte as a mask on that, then I can change the color of the jacket. Let's preview this to green. Maybe I want it a little darker. And let's preview the very end on the right and see what that looks like. Look at that. It's now turned green and it's blending really well with the sunlight. If the sunlight had been blue now, it would still blend with that green of the jacket. I'll make it even more pronounced to make it easier to see. Look at that. So this is the technically correct way to change the color of something in comp. Let's just keep that as like a dark green and keep the sun at a warm. Well, let's give him his visor as well. I rendered the visor as a separate view layer, and the reason for that is, to preview that, I wanted to be able to change the color of it in post, just to have the flexibility to do it if the colorist came back and said, you know what, we need the visor to be a different color to harmonize with the scene better. Maybe they changed the exterior or whatever. So the visor, as you can tell from the list, doesn't have very many layers. It has a gloss color, it has a glossy direct, and a glossy indirect, a trans indirect, and that's it. That's all. And then an alpha channel at the very end. What's cool here now is I can just blend all of these layers into the layers I already have here, and they'll meld completely. But still, the easiest way to do it is to just do it separately and then merge it over at the very end. So I'll actually do that. I'll go to my script, Hos Split EXR Ultra, run and close. Gives me all of those. And let's do gloss, channel boolean, add to indirect, multiply with color, boolean add with trans. Now let's look at that. Looks about right. And then set the alpha with another channel boolean, alpha from the background. Get this in there and then switch with Control T, switching the inputs, switching these two, and preview that. That looks right. Now I can get this over my pilot. So what I can actually do now is, I'll bring this over here, to just stay organized, is to select everything that's the pilot, Control G to group it, and now it's just one node that I can open with double clicking and close with the cross. So this is the pilot. This is the visor. And getting these over each other is as easy as doing an MRG merge, which respects alphas. Just getting it over, like that. Now it's merged over. But I would imagine that the purpleness on the visor would actually cast a little bit of purple on the guy. So I'll go into my pilot here. And I'll look for, let's see, the trans color probably is good, because that's the transmission color. That's what's coloring this, the face. So let's go into that and just merge a background over that. A background is just a solid color. I'll set it to multiply and set that background color to a purple. That makes it pink, making the face pink, and therefore the whole pilot a little pink. Let's do it a lot less powerfully though. Just reduce the blend on that. Let's have a little bit. Let's see everything together on the right. See how much pink do I want? Yeah, that's good. And now, of course, I can always change the color of the visor. Maybe it should harmonize with that green. So I'll do a CC, color corrector, and shift the hue over to a more greenish, and do the same with this background. So it now casts a green color. Right? It's just so powerful, being able to change things so quickly without re-rendering. And you get to see everything, like the finished pixels. You don't have to like wait for rendering while dealing with the shaders and stuff. By the way, since we're working in linear colors, these are not the real colors, right? Remember, we turned on a viewport LUT. This is what it really looks like, meaning that if we export this, it's not going to look correct. So if you want to convert it to your screen colors, what you do is you add a no OCIO color space, you browse for that Blender config again, and then you set the source space to whatever you rendered in my case, Linear Rec 709. Actually, it's exactly the same as what we did in the viewport LUT, so AGX space as RGB and high contrast in this case. And now you can like move to, for example, the color page and start coloring in the right colors. But if you want to keep working in linear and keep your project in that, just delete that, keep it in linear, and turn on a viewport LUT. So, okay, if you just had the one view layer, this would be it. This would be it for you. You would be finished. You would just have to do this. But I rendered a bunch of view layers. I had the interior as one, I had the exterior as one, and I'll show you how to get those in there too. And I'll do that with another custom node that I made that just really increases the speed of what I just did, because this is kind of cumbersome, I know. But before that, let's go into Blender and see how I rendered to be able to do this. So this is my Blender scene. On the left, you see my 3D view. On the right, you see my compositor window. That's here, you know, you can go to the compositor. In my file output tab, I've made sure to turn on the compositor. Here, compositing turned on. And these nodes on the left are view layers. I make these up here, right? You can add a new view layer, and in each view layer you can turn on and off different collections to, you know, make only the pilot visible in one of them. I've made a whole video on this, the one with the Dune thumbnail. So that's here, and these are file output nodes, and those were generated automatically. That's because of a new add-on that I've found. It's a free one. It's called Industrial AOV Connector, and I wish I knew about this before. So you find it here in the View Layers tab. At the bottom, there's this, Industrial AOV Connector, and it just automates all the connecting. So if I actually delete these, I'll show you. Deleting the output nodes. Let's just check my settings here. I don't want to denoise stuff. Turn on Advanced mode, and here under Advanced, use these settings. DWAA compression makes tiny files, and that's all you need for RGBA layers. That's the beauty layers that I mentioned earlier. Data layers, that's like position and UV map and vector and stuff. This is the best compression for that. It's a Pixar compression. It's named after them, and it's literally made for this. It's the best. And for Cryptomattes, you need it to be zips. Cryptomattes will not work in anything other than zip and zips, but zips is a little smaller. And then just click Cook Node Tree, and it'll just do that. It'll just hook everything up in the right way. Such a huge time saver. Now let's see, the Cryptomattes, that's these. So I turned on the object, material, and asset for my Cryptomatte. And the levels is how deep do you want it to be able to see? Like, do you want to be able to select, say, the whole face behind the mask, right? And these files get huge, so I turn this down to 2, which is the lowest. But I mean, if you want the flexibility, keep it at 6. Now, these output nodes are set to color management follow scene, which I think means that they're just going to render in linear Rec 709 by default. I typically override it and set it to that. The reason you have to render in linear Rec 709 or any linear color space, all of them work. But the reason to do that is the compositing math doesn't work out correctly if you don't render in linear. If you render in anything else, the math is going to be wrong, and the final output is not going to look like it did in Blender. Okay, let's bring in the final layers and see this image come to life. Now let's do it a little faster this time. Let's do the interior, rename it to int, right click, script, EXR splitter. Keeps showing up on my second monitor. I gotta drag it in every time. But okay, run and close, remove that, brings in a bunch of them. I didn't render every single pass possible, only the ones that are relevant for my scene, but download the cheat sheet and you'll know what to do with every one of them. But also download this node, the Back to Beauty Cycles node. I'm releasing this for free because I think there may be bugs, although I haven't found any, but I don't feel like I can take any money for it. It just has a bunch of inputs correlating to each of these, and it just does all the math, all the compositing for you. So all you need to do is drag them in one by one. So drag in this, hold Alt on your keyboard or Option on a Mac, and then just click on the one that it is. So I just drag the diff call, so I click diff call, do the same here, drag this in, hold Alt, diff direct, diff indirect, and just keep going with all of them. The great thing with this is that it works even if you don't fill all of them. It actually took a long time to give it fallbacks in case you didn't connect anything, so you should appreciate that. Gloss indirect. Still gotta connect them manually, but at least it does all the math for you. It doesn't add the alpha, so let's just do that. BOL to alpha, alpha background, bring this in here and switch them. And that's it. That's the cockpit. Select all of them, Control G to group and call it interior. And then let's merge the pilot over that and preview. It's that easy. Oh, what happened there? Probably some GPU glitch, I think. Just hide that. There we go. Professionalism. Cool. I don't think I actually rendered a sunlight group for the interior, which I should have, so that I could match the sunlight on the interior to the sunlight on the pilot, but never mind that. Let's just mute the sunlight change. Control P. Now let's bring in the exterior too, because I have something I want to show you with the exterior, and that is how to select an object without rendering a Cryptomatte. Cryptomatte can be overkill for some things. So this is EXT. And in here I have a layer called, oh, not in here, but in the exterior data, actually. In here I have one called index OB. That looks like this. That's just selecting the exterior plane. And the way to render that is in here, in Blender. If I go to my exterior view layer and just click the ground, you'll see in the object settings, every single object has, here, a pass index under relations. And it's 0 by default, but I set everything on the plane to be 1. Then when I output a pass called object index, that's going to show up as white. If you know you want to select something in comp, that's an easy way to do it. Let's do the environment and just merge the exterior over that. I'm doing it the quick way this time. Looks like I forgot to render with clouds this time, but did I forget? Or is this an intentional learning moment? No, I just forgot. But what's super great now is, let's say I MRG merge everything over the exterior, preview that. That gives me the final image. Looks like this. Let's say, damn, I should have rendered the clouds. Well, now I can go in and render just the exterior view layer with clouds, get it in here, and not have to render everything else as well. It's going to render in like 1/10 of the time. So this workflow is super lenient to any mistakes. You can always redo just part of it and not have to render everything else. One more thing to consider if you want to comp something transparent like this glass over something else, you gotta go to the render settings and under, let's see, under film, you have to check not only transparent, but also transparent glass. That's the only way it'll work. So I think you can see the power of this. It saves time, gives you more flexibility, and it allows you to work in screen space with things. So if I feel like just for this particular shot, I want to darken just the interior, just around the edges, I can go to the interior, I can CC color corrector, lower the gain, just darken that up, and maybe do that using just an elliptical mask. Set to invert, soft edge, and check it out. Now I can just darken the edges. That is before and after. Like doing that in 3D would have been such a hassle. So it's a really nice way to work with a shot. And after this point, this is where one of my previous videos come in, the camera emulation one. After this final node, this is where you put the camera emulation, and then you have a finished shot. So go and download my custom Fusion nodes, install them in your Fusion folder. You actually need to install all of them for them to work because they reference each other interdependently. So install all of them, and I hope they'll save you some time. In any case, I hope this was useful, and I'll see you in the next video.